All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Hannah Jennings, and I'm a community organizer at Tech in Motion. As we get started, feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat, as you all are already doing. Let us know where you're tuning in from, your current tech role, and then maybe what aspect of AR or UX you're most excited to explore today. If you've attended a Tech in Motion event before, you know we've been bringing together the tech community since 2011 when Motion Recruitment first launched this event series. Tech in Motion is all about learning from industry leaders, making meaningful connections, and being inspired by innovation. And that's exactly what we're going to do today. Today's topic is one that's redefining how we interact with technology, augmented reality. As interfaces leave the screen and enter the world around us, designers and product teams are being challenged to rethink everything, from usability to accessibility. Over the next hour, our panelists will explore how AR is reshaping interaction design, from spatial gestures to immersive environments. We'll also touch on the skills, tools, and team structures needed to build intuitive, inclusive experiences in this new frontier. Be sure to stay tuned until the end for live audience Q&A. You can submit those questions anytime throughout the event in the Q&A tab, and our panelists will do their best to get to as many as possible. And those that we aren't able to address, we will try to follow up with post-event. This session is being recorded, so if you have to hop off early for any reason, no problem. We'll get you a recording to your inbox. Now, let's kick off our panel discussion. I'm excited to introduce our host for today, Chris Craig. Chris is a senior product leader with over a decade of experience building innovative products across education, gaming, and wellness. He's currently developing Deckly, a platform for collectors and hobbyists that blends smart digital and physical cards. Recently quoted in the Washington Post on the intersection of AI and human creativity, Chris is a strategic leader focused on empowering product teams. We're so excited to have you here with us, Chris. I will let you take it from here.
Happy Thursday, everybody. And I'm calling in from West Hollywood today, West Hollywood, California. I've spent 10 years in the tech industry working on hardware, software, all over the place as well. I've worked in the UK, I've worked in the United States, and I've lived in Oregon, Texas, and California at the intersection of technology and multiple different subjects. The thing I want to dive into pretty quickly here is what we're going to talk about today. And I love seeing in the chat, by the way, all these folks from Santa Monica, Los Angeles, and from all over the place. But hello to the folks in Southern California today. I just want to dive in what we're going to talk about today. So multiple subjects to go through, and the main focus is augmented reality that we're talking about today. But we'd also need to talk a little bit about VR, virtual reality. And one thing that we might need to talk about, it's been a hot topic recently, this thing called AI, right? Artificial intelligence. And the other thing that we like to talk about right now is generative AI. We're going to talk about that as well. We're also going to delve into computer vision a little bit and quantum, and we'll define that as we get into the discussion. At this point, what we're going to do is we're going to bring over our panelists and we're going to have them do a quick introduction as well. And we're going to kick that off, starting with our panelist, Alex. I'll let you take it from here.
Hi there, everybody. Welcome to the event. I am Alex Candelas, and I'm a tech entrepreneur and a founder of the UX practice. I'm an educator, a mentor, a coach, and I help companies and C-suite executives navigate all the complexities that come along through, with product design. And one of the things I focus on is really how do you deliver customer value. I'm also a co-founder of a startup consultancy called Penlo Parc, and we focus on helping startups go through the product market fit phase and their fundraising journey. So my focus as an entrepreneur is really, and a product executive, is really on digital innovation and how I can help companies strategically kind of go through the transformation phase towards customer excellence. I hold over a dozen patents and trade secrets and tech innovations. And lastly, I'm an adjunct professor at Northeastern University in Boston, Boston University, and Mass College of Art and Design. Thank you for having me. I look forward to the discussion. I'm going to pass it over to Nathan Pearce.
Thanks, Alex. I'm Nathan Pearce. I'm a UX director, started in the video game industry and then moved over to enterprise. Like Alex, I have a couple of patents. I have 3 solo patents I came up with at Sony Online, one of which is in the PlayStation 5 today. I worked for Atari in New York City, Sony in San Diego, and Oracle in the Silicon Valley area. I'm fascinated by the future of augmented reality in particular. I've considered myself somewhat of a futurist and inventor. I'm also dabbling in writing a new book. I have a sci-fi book coming out in a couple months. I can't show you the cover. That's why the paper's there. It's called Faith Faraday and the Cyber Samurai, set in a futuristic Tokyo. After college, I lived in Tokyo for a year teaching conversational English, and it's almost like stepping into the future, really. And it was actually one of the inspirations for one of my patents was the technology I witnessed when I was there. So that's I think a lot of the industry relies on user experience designers to visualize how burgeoning technology might be applied in future contexts and use our imagination to stretch the boundaries of what's possible. And that's my favorite thing about the discipline. Greg, you're up.
Hello and welcome. My name is Greg Nudelman, and I'm a distinguished designer at Sumo. And what that means in practice, I lead AI projects and AI-driven innovation practice, and get to have all sorts of fun with cybersecurity and observability stuff. I have a few patents in AI space. I wrote 6 books on UX design, and the latest being UX for AI. Which is a framework for building UX AI-driven products. So it's just recently came out, so definitely check out the copy. It's just type in UX for AI into Amazon or your favorite online book retailer, and you find it. I have deep roots in augmented reality and VR, and I've been following the topic for a very long time, being a futurist and a kind of a sci-fi nerd myself. On the practical level, I've worked on the smart helmet at GE, which is kind of industrial application of augmented reality, which I hope we'll talk about today. And ODG, that's Austin House Design Group, smart glasses, which was basically a more ragged version of Google Glass with some fancy lenses that allowed you to kind of project in 3D manner, but that was also for industrial and military applications. Tons of fun, and I look forward to this discussion. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you all for amazing introductions. We have what I would like to say, this is my opinion, the top 3 panelists we could find in the entire world, and they are here with us today to discuss this subject. So let's dive into our first question. Let's start with how is AR redefining the way users interact with digital content beyond the screen? That's going to be our first topic of discussion today. How is AR redefining the way users interact with digital content beyond the screen? Feel free to kick it off, who'd ever like to start with that.
Wow. I guess I'll jump in. Well, one of my favorite applications back in the day was Yelp Monocle. I don't know if you all remember that. That really dates me, I think, as a UX designer. So I was fascinated with this ability to kind of walk around and be part of the world, but at the same time have all this information streaming in. In your ability to interact with it and change directions and kind of see all around you. I think it's basically what this allows us to do, Chris, is I think it allows us to keep in the world, keep being present, while at the same time giving us the best of what AI can bring in at in almost in real time. And I think that's extremely empowering. It's a bit like having the your own personal Jarvis, which is the Iron Man suit of armor, right? So as he doesn't, if you think of the Jarvis interaction, he doesn't actually push any buttons. He just kind of talks to it as you normally would, and then it overlays all sorts of useful information while he's doing what he's doing, which is, doing impossible, flying, physics-defying tricks and so on, escaping enemies and defending the universe. So that is kind of the way that I feel it's going, and that is what I think we need to strive for as designers.
Yeah, to build off what Greg said, I think that VR and AR in particular, with computer vision overlaid on top, is going to help us make sense of the outside world around us. I'm sure everybody here who's listening, sometimes you feel a sense of being out of the loop, a little bit of detachment from the greater world when you step away from your computer, when you put your phone down, you're no longer connected, right? So I think AR has the promise of keeping you connected as you go about your day out there in the scary outside that people talk about, but also making, as computer vision enhances and AI enhances, making sense of the world around you. You're going to be able to, I mean, Google Lens does this a good bit, but I see more applications for it. Being able to look at your environment and have the computer make sense of it, help you make sense of it. Not only what you're looking at in the moment, but what it may have been just moments ago. There was a use case I saw that I think the NSA is actually using right now, where they are comparing old video taken a week ago to new video and running a diff, seeing what the delta is between the two, and being able to detect very, very minute changes. In the use case I was looking at, they had some video of a grassy hill, and they took it yesterday. They took the same video again today, and there's a slight disturbance in the grass, and they knew that somebody walked up that hill because the grass was slightly moved around. That's wild. Now imagine you've got that on your phone. You're walking around your neighborhood. You pan your phone around. Do it again tomorrow, and an AR overlay will be able to tell you what changed between yesterday and today. So, changing over things that change over time, bringing those things to your attention. It's going to be fascinating, the applications.
And I'd like, oh, go ahead, Alex, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that there's actually a lot of research that's been happening over the last many years. I'd say, 15, 20 years at institutions like MIT and Stanford with screenless technologies. Some of them, like at MIT, Patty Mays's department over at the Media Lab does quite a bit of this. And they have things like the thinking cap, which is a cognitive device that students wear on their head, and it nudges them for various, cognitive abilities. There's, now there's, more of gestures and, voice, because NLP has become such more of a commonplace where you've got nudges in hearing aids that help cognitive ability. There's even an experiment that's been happening at MIT for many years about allowing blind people to actually navigate without people by wearing this belt. So there's, and it guides them through. All of these devices require interfaces. And that's where designers are going to be hugely important now and down the road in kind of interpreting how do we interact with these augmented, devices with, in our world. So, yeah, I encourage people to explore some of those research areas.
Yeah, can I just jump in?
Go ahead, Greg.
Sorry, Chris. Yeah, I just love this because I love what both Nathan and Alex, I think, touched on, is basically being able to see the invisible or make the invisible visible, whether you're vision impaired or you just want to see that extra dimension of reality that you are not able to see, like the diff. One of the projects that I had the honor of working on was the smart irrigation project, and one of the things we were looking at is basically looking at the field, doing a scan, and then looking at hotspots, and then doing the same thing after the irrigation cycle, just to be able to see where did the water not go or where the water pooled downhill and things like that, because you can see the cold spots and so on. And as you're walking through your field as kind of the farm operator, you can actually see where that is happening by this augmented vision. In this case, it was on the phone, but you can actually look around and see, oh yeah, there's a kind of a cold spot. We can see the water kind of pooling down here, and so we need to adjust the sprinklers to kind of optimize the water saving aspect of this. But you can't see the water, right, because it's underground. But doing the scan and then being able to see it on your device gives you that ability to see the invisible. I think that is a really cool theme that it gives you the ability to do with this tech. So
Well,
Godspeed to anyone who wants to do this kind of work.
I love the fact that we've been able to distinguish kind of VR and AR, and their distinguishing factors in this conversation so far. Plus, we've talked a little bit about accessibility. As someone who, you'll notice I only wear one AirPod instead of the other, who's hard of hearing in their left ear. Accessibility is a huge topic for me, which I really appreciate discussing. Now, one of the things I do want to talk about, as someone who's used Quest, who's used PSVR, and talk about the VR AR accessibility side of things, a question I do want to ask. And we're going to talk about a metric here that we've all heard of, actually called time to vomit when it comes to VR. But the question I'd like to ask everybody, what challenges arise when designing interfaces without clear screen boundaries? When we're talking about things like accessibility, and then we'll segue a bit into more accessibility after this. But the question again, what challenges arise when designing interfaces without clear screen boundaries? Whoever wants to kick that one off, take it.
I'll start. I mean, the pointing devices, selection devices, being able to understand. I mean, with the Quest, you have these, joystick things, but with Apple Vision Pro, it's your hands. I think that understanding how to interact with the interfaces in front of you is one big challenge. And then another one, of course, is a safety issue. The drawing the circle around yourself so you don't run into your couch or something. Those are we've all seen videos of people really hurting themselves. There's even a subreddit called VR to ER, where people take photos of their injuries that they've gotten from using VR, and the closed off nature of VR. You're looking at a video through in your goggles, but then with pass through, being able to see the video that your headset is taking in front of you, of course, the hardware has to capture and render that video really, really fast. Otherwise, you have a motion lag. You move your head to the left, and it has to be like less than 1/10 of a second before the video moves, or you're going to have the time to vomit right away.
Yeah, it reminds me very much of the Ready Player One, where the bad guys are talking about like how many things can we put on the screen to before they have seizures, and I think that applies both to AR and VR, right? We don't want to overload, and that's very much what we saw in ODG when we were trying to balance kind of labeling the field of battle, essentially saying these are the bad guys. Focus fire over here. Don't hit these guys because they're friendlies. How much do you overload the screen before that becomes detrimental to actually being able to shoot straight, for lack of a better word? Right. So and in VR, because you're not actually anchored to reality, that's even worse. And we see that not just in we see that to a smaller extent in these kind of plant operator rooms that are typically dark, and you have a whole bunch of screens in front of you, and sometimes they're kind of in the circular manner, so you kind of have to use literally pivot your chair to look at different screens, and they're all kind of at eye level. So if you can imagine kind of VR being 360 from that perspective. But yeah, same rules apply, and same limitations. People can only really pay attention for so long before the attention wanes, and you have accidents happen. So they have special rules in place, and try to make the interfaces almost less active. Really call your attention to something by making it flash, as opposed to and everything else is muted. That like don't make anything red unless it's really needs to be read. Very much applies, like being really judicious with color and motion, and being very deliberate, I think, with alarms and alerts and things the customer really needs to know about.
I think some of the things that help there is what we need to think about is what we traditionally think about in terms of how we're designing interfaces. It's very similar to like having interfaces with a lot of data. So you have to worry about the cognitive load. So you don't just, kind of vomit out everything that right. You really want to give layers of information, and give them at the time that
Yeah.
people want them or need them. And I think that with AR and VR, just like Greg and Nathan are suggesting, is you do it at a point that makes sense. You don't give it to them all at once because they can harm themselves. I mean, that's the difference when you're working with a physical environment. But even in a virtual environment, you could have serious, kind of injuries, that can occur depending on what industry you're working in. Just think about, if you're working for any kind of a military installation or a jet, or in how all of those interfaces have to come into play. You're not going to have them all on at the same time. So I think that the traditional things that we know that we've learned in foundational design still apply, and
Mhm.
just have to think about them a little bit more deeply.
Yeah, I agree with that. To riff off of my colleagues, the UX principle of progressive disclosure is going to be key to AR. I anticipate that in the future, when you put on some AR glasses, you might even wonder if they're on, because if it's a good progressive disclosure design, you won't see much of anything. Probably maybe a reticle, maybe something, a menu bar, something to let you know it's activated and it's working. But to what Alex and Greg were just saying, in order to minimize the overload, making things extremely contextual, only show me the information I need at the moment in a progressive disclosure fashion that everybody in UX is familiar with that
Yeah,
discipline.
Nathan, I'm wearing AR glasses right now, and it's actually prompting me to say what I'm saying. I'm only joking.
I was gonna say, and the best part is no one knows if that's true
No
or
one
not,
knows.
which is partially what we're discussing here. And then
That's
earlier when
awesome.
you said, we don't want them to vomit all at once, as like a product leader, I immediately thought like, oh, you want like the agile method, so they just vomit a little every 2 weeks. Is that how
They
it
take
goes?
turns.
Yeah, no,
It's your
exactly.
turn.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
the new
Well,
stand up, right? You have to vomit at your new daily stand up.
That's
yeah.
it. That's it. Exactly. Greg, did you want to add in anything?
Yeah, I was going to say this is where I think generative AI can actually help, and that's where I think we can explore uh, stuff that I work with every day. I'm fortunate enough to be able to do that, which is like how much content do you really need, right? What are you talking about?
Right.
We struggle with a lot of the same stuff in Gen AI, which is do we kind of separate with emojis? Is there separators? Because it's literally most of it is text. How do we present it in the way that's most conducive to consumption and prevent this kind of wall of text effect, right? Which is we have even smaller field of view, right? Even less
Yeah.
screen real estate, right? The controls are even smaller. So the AI needs to be much smarter about it. But it's also, I think, an opportunity because on the other hand, we could use AI to then figure out what exactly is important about this, only pull out what's important, and then prompt the customer to give us more. Do you want me to do this? Do you want me to do that? Do you want to kind of like what do you want to do next? Like this is what I recommend, these steps. And I think that's extremely that can be extremely helpful because if you're doing something, then your mind is elsewhere and you just need a few simple prompts like for example, if you're using smart helmet and you're actually trying to fix a machine, you don't need the full schematic of every single valve and every single component. You just want the stuff that is broken. Specifically, how do I disassemble it in the way that I'm not going to break it to get to the part that is broken so I can replace it? Right. While I'm struggling with maybe high wind, or maybe I'm on a moving platform that's actually rocking in the ocean, and it's a very unsafe environment for me, and maybe I have actual tethers and heavy gloves on and so on and so forth, right? If you really practice contextual design, if you place yourself into the customer's shoes and really understand that it's not about them like focusing on every aspect of the interface, they actually have a job to do. And then maybe they're not stupid, they are just really focused on what they're doing, and they need you to not intrude upon it, and just be kind of the invisible, almost invisible interface. It's like they say, in a fancy restaurant, the best service is invisible. Food just sort of appears and disappears, and you never really see it happen. It's the same thing. We don't want to hold the technology up on a pedestal and say like, ta-da, this is amazing, like look at this robot that's feeding you stuff. It disappears. It's more in the background until you need it, and then it appears like magic even before you know you need it. And that is really what we all strive for
And
as
Greg,
designers.
if I could just add one thing to Greg, I mean, I think what Greg is saying is a really fabulous opportunity for designers. Is really to embrace conversational AI interfaces, and we haven't even hit the surface yet. We haven't even started. There's actually no design in conversational UI. And so that is an opportunity that is open for exploration. How can we actually take conversational AI interfaces and make them more digestible, clearer, not the conventional, here it is, spit it out, here's a table, that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I think
excellent conversation, Greg.
I think we see in the chat here, David, Brandon, Kash, all kind of like chiming in with similar attributes relative to what you're talking about here on the comment around Unity is a good starting point, and then AI should be able to give you better, less contextual information in real time in AR view. I think that aligns with what we've talked about on the generative AI side of things as well. And I do want to delve into that question. So Nathan, I am going to cut you off here for 1 second. Just to go into our next question, which I think will delve more into this, because I mentioned at the very beginning computer vision, and I'd like to talk a little bit about that if we can. So question is, will generative AI, when mixed with computer vision and AR, introduce trust issues with what you see? And let me ask that question again. Will generative AI, when mixed with computer vision and AR, introduce trust issues with what you see?
Yes, and there's a really great example of this in the book Wool, which Apple is on Apple TV as a series. It's called Silo in there. And if you don't want the beginning of Wool spoiled for you, mute me for 15 seconds. The pivotal end of the first episode of Wool involves somebody being exiled outside the silo to die, and people wonder why. They then turn around and clean the lens on the camera that everybody's watching them through. It's because the helmet they're using secretly is an AR display, and the person wearing it doesn't even know it. And on the interior display is being projected a utopia, green grass, blue skies, birds flying around, and when actually it's a wasteland that's going to kill them. And they don't realize this, and they're being lied to, and they think that everybody back in the silo is should see this, so they go clean the lens. Okay, hopefully you've unmuted me by now. I just spoiled Wool for you. But that's an amazing sci-fi example of how what you just said, computer vision with AR, and then I would call that a deep fake. You're deep faking reality and displaying to people what you want them to see. And what I was saying before about using AR as a lens to decipher the world around you, well, who's doing the deciphering for you? Do you trust them?
It's a great
Scary
question.
stuff.
We're
Yeah,
gonna go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna say the fakes are getting so unbelievably good. It's now becoming they're introducing little imperfections in there and things like that with a little bit of randomness. It's a little bit
Humanisms.
of noise. Yeah, exactly. It's becoming more human, and as imperfect as we are. It also understands kind of where our minds and eyes go to grasp whether something's real or not. So yeah, it's getting very, very interesting. We're going to see some very interesting stuff in the next 10 years. So
So Yeah, the thing though I think that we should keep in mind is with all of these technologies, it still takes a professional eye to be able to create them in a manner that they are kind of realistic, whether they're deep fakes or not. And I point back to where all this imagery started from with AI. A few years back, there was a photographer who, you might remember this, who entered, a real professional photographer, award winning, asked to submit, photography or a competition. And it was juried, and he did, and he actually won. And he went up to, I don't know if you know the story, went up to receive the award, and he told them that he didn't do this in camera, and he didn't even do this in Photoshop. He actually did this using virtual reality. There was no camera that ever touched the image. And the spectacular thing about it is that nobody, we're talking about people who could judge photography, at the highest level, and the highest aesthetic level. And the only reason why he said he could pull it off is because he was a professional photographer. He knew all about the lighting, all about the composition, and he could actually tell the system to generate things without hallucinations. Whenever he saw hallucination, he would go in there and repair the hallucination. They took the award away from him, but
He made
that's
his
what
point.
started it and made his
Yeah.
point that and I think that the future is I mean, we have a lot of designers that are very concerned about all of this stuff happening, but it is going to put designers at a different level where they are much more valuable because they do have that foundational experience, and they do know how to talk to a conversational AI and to computer vision, and to be able to meld all this together to actually come up with something useful.
I think it's a little wild if you look at on social media, we already deal with staged content, right? So staged content made through AR or VR or another kind of technical lens, even less safe than what we've seen as far as people producing content that might not be true. So I think it does bring some interesting social implications into things from what we see today already, not leveraging AR, but what we see from content being generated from users. One question I do want to add in as we're talking about kind of emergent usability and then accessibility, uh, what strategies help maintain consistency and clarity across mixed reality contexts? And I'll ask that again. What strategies help maintain consistency and clarity across mixed reality contexts?
I think that the same applies as we do in traditional systems. Over the last 10 years, we've seen the introduction and the evolution of design systems and design libraries. And those apply to software and virtual worlds as well. And I think that with AR down the pike, that we will need, in order to promote consistency, you have to think about things in that same fashion. Again, I stress, you leave it up to the designer to be able to, and the design team to be able to identify these patterns and what repeatable patterns need to be thought of in these systems that will actually bring consistency, because consistency breeds usability, great usability issues. It eliminates usability issues. So
We need to quote and segment that clip. That was that last little clip there was excellent. We'll need to put that in the video. I'll talk to Hannah about it. Anybody else want to chime in on that topic?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think intuitive, like I know people throw the word intuitive around. I'm actually starting to really detest that word because I don't think anything's really intuitive. Um, Other than maybe baby sort of suckling on the breast, I suppose, or I mean, that's pretty much that's That's our first intuition, is to crawl towards something warm and delicious. But anyway,
We're
sorry
gonna
about
clip
that
that too,
imagery.
I hope.
But
Let's clip that.
there
Yeah.
you go. Yeah, we can cut that out. But the point I'm trying to make is there's very little that's intuitive about our UIs today. Like, we throw that word around like it's nothing, and I don't think it's quite right. And things that are sort of over explained, they become cloying and irritating very, very quickly as you progress in your mastery, in your, and that's where you get that overload of all the help text and everything else, right? We don't actually need that or don't want that as as we become professionals or become kind of known for this interface. So what we want is maybe an onboarding experience that is specifically designed to make you comfortable, and then be able to have a little bit more forgiving interfaces that are a little bit more natural. And that's, again, where AI, I think, is an unexplored medium that can really, really help us, because as opposed to kind of starting out overthinking this and really kind of a lot of folks talking over lattes about what makes intuitive, and the product manager, not to call Chris out, but the product managers always go like, well, let's just make it intuitive. Well, can you just make it intuitive? And
Oh, is that all?
Apple's intuitive. And I'm like, no, it's not intuitive, actually, because you guys have watched thousands of hours of commercials of people using it. Now you think it's intuitive, but you actually have gotten it from a commercial. It's actually not intuitive. If you watch older folks that have gotten an Apple phone or Apple iPad for the first time, you will see exactly what I'm talking about. It is about as unintuitive as it gets, and some things are downright weird. So what I'm saying is, it's kind of in the eye of the beholder, and I think AI can help us there, because it can detect what exactly are you doing. Are you struggling with this? Are you poking the wrong thing? What is AI trying to do? Oh, I'm trying to do this. Oh, okay. Well, to do this, you need to, let me show you how to do this. Let me do this for you. Let me kind of guide you through it a couple of times. And then as you forget, which level of menus, not to call out Apple specifically, if you go for Microsoft, same thing, right? You go for all these menus, which level of menus is something adjusted at, which is where my next point comes in, is maybe we need to start thinking in multiple dimensions, right? It's not just UI where you click the mouse and you do something, and it's not just voice, and it's not just gestures, but maybe it's all of that. Maybe you're doing something in the UI, and then you say, well, repeat this for all the other boxes on the screen. That kind of thing, right? That seems like normal, or just kind of say, okay, I'm gonna just swipe, and there's a camera that just goes, okay, now he's wanting to do some different task. And maybe that could be misinterpreted, etc. But depending on where you are, maybe I kind of sit back and go like this. Okay, now I'm ready for a new thing. So we're starting to get inroads into this. Maybe drivers, for example, they shut their eyes right before the impact or something like that. There's a lot more of that type of assistance happening, and so some high-end cars actually tighten the seatbelt based on facial gestures and so on. These are small inroads, but I think we'll see a lot more of that type of thing, almost like the guy controlling the flying arrow, right? In the new alien guy, I can't remember his name.
Guardians of the Galaxy, dude.
Guardians of the Galaxy, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, sort of that sort of thing, where it's not intuitive, but it is a learning experience that guides you toward mastery and empowers you as you do it, and you feel good about every time you interact with the software.
Yeah.
It actually makes you feel amazing, and you grow. As you grow, you get more and more skills and more mastery. You get to do it faster and faster through this combo of UI, gestures, and voice. And it's a progression, and I think it's really, really cool. I'm really excited about what we're going to see in the next 10 years. And I don't know if I'm jumping the gun here, but it's not gonna happen for your Figma wireframes.
Yeah.
Just one
That's for sure.
warning there. Figma is a great tool. Don't get me wrong, but if all you do all day is work in Figma and create static wireframes, this is not going to be the future where you're going to get job security or even be relevant much longer. You need to jump into actually creating some of these systems and creating these AI-driven live prototypes, and that's where AI itself can help you, right? Like if you've never coded, for example, that's a perfect example of something that is not intuitive, but something that empowers you through. The more you use it, the better you get at it, and every little thing you do is almost magical, and it is a really cool experience. If you've never vibe coded, I encourage you to try it today, and get on the road with a more functional, more interesting prototypes and more relevance.
Well, let's continue to talk about the future as we kind of move towards the end of discussion. Let's continue to talk about the future of kind of AR. I'm going to throw AI in there as well, and then I'm going to hand that over to Nathan actually, because I think you have some thoughts on this. So let's just talk about the future. We'll say future possibilities in this area, relating back to what Greg said around intuition and how that relates, but what are kind of some futuristic possibilities we see with AI and AR?
Was someone to me? Sorry.
Yeah, and I'll hand that one off to you, Nathan.
Okay, yeah. I as a UX guy who's just deeply interested in AR, I started to leverage some of that in the sci-fi book I was talking about earlier, and I have a detective in 50 years in the future in Tokyo, and she, for most of this book, she's either wearing a one lens or dual lens AR overlay. And one of the things she uses it for is the eye tracking of crowds in front of her. She's in Shinjuku Station in Tokyo, and she turns on eye tracking. It puts little red sniper lasers on everybody's eyes so she can see where the crowd is looking as they pass through the tunnel. And they see if they're looking at a person or at a sign or at the sidewalk or the floor in front of them. So that's a fun one. That, as a law enforcement person, it's an investigative tool, could easily be used for surveillance of people. It's also many years in our future. I think this will happen, but I think it's going to be quite a while before we have an AR overlay of other people's eye tracking. You can imagine that Google AdSense would love it too. The FBI and Google AdSense would leverage that one. And another one I thought of was similar to Blade Runner. In my book, some of the characters are AI, and some of them are human, and some of them are AI and they don't know. They think they're human. And my hero uses thermal imaging to detect those. The GPU in their head and the battery in their abdomen glow really hot, and the rest is cool. Whereas a human's thermal signature is more even. Certainly our brains are warm, but the rest of us is relatively even. So she uses that to suss out the AIs. And then go ahead.
Just like to confirm that everyone here is human. We are not AI. Just so
we're gonna have to check.
We know at least like from the head up we're all human. So just to clarify for everybody.
No, I'm not a cat. Yes.
At least we all think we are. And the other one, back to the book Wool, the idea of deep faking somebody's AR view of the world. And then in my book too, a character has lost his eye and he gets a cybernetic eye replacement. And the bad guy is infected with doubt and cynicism. It's the reverse of rose-colored glasses. They make him hate the world because they show him the darker side of everything. Everywhere he looks, he sees suspicion and anger and violence, and it turns him away from where he would have gone otherwise. So it's there's like anything that's a level up in technology. There are wonderful uses and evil uses of these things.
I do want to segue actually over to Alex, and I'll have you go before I have a question specifically for you, but go ahead, Alex.
I was going to say, I think that some of this is in sci-fi. At Worcester Polytech Institute, when you were talking about eye tracking, there's a principal investigator who's been kind of the foremost expert in eye tracking. And one of their PhD students did an extensive investigation over many years on detecting pain through your eyes. And the medical community itself is really very interested in this. So it's not too far-fetched in terms of what we could potentially do with eye tracking. But to speak more broadly about sort of AR and AI, sort of the convergence together, I think it's going to be one of the most transformational shifts that we, are going to see in our field of UX. Um, and and right on the heels of that, AI is coming quantum computing. And I don't think that we can have a conversation about AI without talking about what's going to potentially happen with quantum. And when I think of the future, in technology, I like to kind of compartmentalize things and break them up into sort of year forecasts because, if you're just going way far out, we might be remiss. So I break it up into 5-year increments. And I think what we're going to see over the next 5 years, and we're already starting to see some of this, is really smart interfaces and how they can really kind of contextual aware interfaces. Okay, we're all familiar with this, right? And you're going to start to see a lot more, overlay of information where PAI kind of learns your patterns and kind of can detect, relevant information to deliver to you when you need it. So hypothetically, you could be wearing a pair of AR glasses and maybe you can't find your keys or you can't find your wallet, and it's going to actually highlight it for you. It's going to know where your wallet and your keys are. Or it's going to know when you're cooking and it might surface, the recipe. Or you could be shopping and it knows that you're walking into a store. I mean, we know this with geofencing, right? And it surfaces your list. I did years ago, I did this experiment with AR in navigate. One of the most challenging things to navigate for people are airports. And I happen to be in travel IT. So we experimented with using a new device that was the new invention of a cell phone, okay, where it would actually, direct you to where you were going by beams on the floor that only you could see. Nobody else could see. So you didn't have all these beams, and it would actually direct you, turn right, turn left. So those kinds of things I think we're already seeing, where the interpretation and the intent of things like, more natural, I think there's going to be a sort of integration of natural, responses like gestures, and eye gazing and things of that sort. And we're starting to see that with like the Apple announcement with what they're doing with translations with the iPods that
Right.
you can actually hear people. Okay, so that's what I think is going to happen in the next 5 years. We're going to see more and more of that. In 10 years, 5 to 10 years, I think we're going to start to see quantum enter the picture, where you're going to get predictive UX. And what quantum is going to do is going to speed things up like to a nanosecond. I can't even say nanosecond because it's like much faster than that. And I think that what we're going to see in predictive UX, it's going to anticipate your needs. It's going to actually consciously be aware of what it is you need. For example, say you've got a whole bunch of events on your calendar. It might give you all the navigation of the routes, or, here's what you need to do. Or if you're going into a meeting room to have a meeting, it's going to actually have all of the documentation that you need to prepare, or all of the scripts. If you go into your doctor's office, it might have already pre-prepared all of your medications, those types of things. And then the potential of personalizing those layers where it delivers things the way you learn, through we've been talking about, part of my dissertation years ago when I was in grad school, I worked with Howard Gardner on learning styles. We've never really tapped into that. most people say, oh, we're visual learners, but there are a lot of people that learn in very different ways, kinesthetic ways or mathematical ways. And we haven't really been able to personalize interfaces for that. But I think that will happen, and we're going to end up blurring those roles where the experience are going to be much more orchestrated based on who you are, whether you want something in audio or you want something more spatial, or you're going to get haptic feedback. We're experimenting with this now, especially at MIT with a lot of different olfactory devices, introducing smells and how they cognitively, affect you, affect your moods, and temperature. It's going to get really, truly, I believe, truly immersive. And then beyond 10 years, we're into a different realm. I think we're going to be in ambient technology where your physical environment is going to be so intelligent that it's going to be able to sense your presence and the behaviors that you have within your space. And that's where cognitive augmentation, I believe, is going to occur. And that's where it gets into scary stuff, where it's going to start to make suggestions and augment your personal abilities. So that's my futuristic view. It'll be interesting to see how much of it actually happens.
In Alex's future world, I won't be falling asleep on the train back from San Francisco anymore. It'll nudge me,
Right.
and knowing what stop I'm supposed to get. Mountain View is my stop, so nudge me when I, that on Alex's train. That would be awesome.
That's exactly it. That being said, I am going to jump in here because we have about 9 minutes left, and we do want to get to Q&A. So let's go ahead and jump into some Q&A here. I'm going to start with, it seems like we had a few people who were curious about this. This is asked by Nino. How do we design for AR with new systems better? And it says Figma user here. There were some comments regarding Figma. So, and I just asked that we keep this to like a couple sentences per response so we can get through a few questions. But how do we design for AR with new systems better? Specifically, the comment was from a Figma user.
Well, I can jump in. I mean, I love going. I mean, I think Alex said it and Nathan said it as well. It's about orchestration more than it is about specific kind of aspects of the screen, at least at the high level. And we really need to look at what are we doing, right? What is the use case? Is it really answering the user problems? And what is the data that we have? Do we have enough RAG? Do we have the way to actually use the data that's bespoke and custom, and it belongs to you and to your customers? So to do that, you don't even need to go to Figma. You need to have conversations with your teammates. You need to brainstorm. You need to use sticky notes and whiteboards and things like that, right? So I would say, up level your work. Really focus on the use case. Focus on user needs. Go back to the roots of what it means to be a UX designer. That is, I think, is going to unlock a lot of things. And then once you got all that figured out, then by all means go to Figma, go to whatever, and then make those wireframes. But don't forget that you can vibe code a very nice prototype with a few prompts. If you join me on LinkedIn and you just DM me, ask for a snowball guide, I can send you my guide to vibe coding. It's just a few pages, but it should get you started to get you out of that Figma mindset and into real prototyping with AI driven systems.
And I'm going to jump in to go to another question because we do have one that is far more upvoted than the others. Actually, a handful here. So I'm actually have two. So the next question here, what's a simple everyday thing people do on their phones today that you think AR could make feel more natural or fun in the near future? And this is from Josh Grayson.
I think looking for things. I think one thing Alex talked about earlier was, finding your keys. I mean, I think there was even a demo recently about, turning around and looking at the bookcase behind you, and then asking Google where your keys are, and it remembers. But I think that's gonna be a fun thing. Finding your wallet, your keys, your hat, all these things. But scanning your house with your phone is going to be a little tedious. So it goes back to more of the ambient UX idea, ambient computing, just systems knowing without being too intrusive. You don't want to festoon the interior of your home with cameras, right? But I think discovery, finding things, objects in your home, but also things to do and see out in your environment around you.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, imagine holding your keys. No scanning. Imagine holding your keys. Okay, they jingle. Your device understands the jingle.
Mm-hmm.
You put it down, it knows where you put it down. So
Yeah, that's
no
crazy
scanning.
cool.
Just there are things like that are going to happen.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
ahead, Craig.
you're getting some preview of this with Apple now figuring out where you parked your car automatically. You don't have to
Yeah.
remember. It knows you were driving and then you stopped, and just that change is enough to
Seems
trip
obvious,
everything
doesn't it?
up.
I mean, shouldn't they have?
Candelas. There you go. So apply the same to all the tasks that you normally get trapped in, and just like the guy who invented Netflix, right? He got tired of paying the late fees in Blockbuster, and the rest is history, as they say.
I'm going to move to the most upvoted question in the Q&A today, which is has to do with kind of future employment in the space. So the question here is, there has been a democratization of UX UI due to AI, where entry-level designers are not getting employed, and some companies don't understand the value of UX product design teams. So the question here is, what do you see as the future of UX in terms of employment? And I think I'm just going to rephrase that slightly. To see what do you see as the future of UX in terms of future opportunities for those who want to work in it?
I think there's going to be I'm sorry, Alex, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Nathan. Go ahead.
I think this what we've seen in coding already is a rebound effect where people fired their engineering teams anticipating ChatGPT to do everything with them, and then hiring several of them, or at least several of them, back when they turn out their product suffers. So that's, I think, something similar to that is going to happen with UX. Alex?
Oh,
Yeah, I was going to
just to go ahead, Alex. Yeah.
I was just going to say, I think that the question of what's happening in the industry has nothing to do with AI, because AI has not taken over the design field yet. I think it has to do with many other factors, one of them being over hiring. But I think that the future for designers is very vibrant and will be very strong. However, designers have to really get themselves educated in foundational design. The days of going to a boot camp and expecting to be a working professional making top dollar are gone, and those days are not going to come back. You have to become knowledgeable in your field and be able to make decisions based on the knowledge that you've gained and the experience that you have. So
Cool. Sorry, we have about 1 minute left. So any further responses on that one?
Yeah, I could do 30 seconds. So if all you do all day is just code to spec, in other words, design to spec, the PM gives you the specification, and then you create wireframes, that's gone. Like, it's not coming back. As Alex said, that this is not going to guarantee employment. This is what AI does. This is robot monkey work. What you want to do is up-level it to a more strategic thing. Are we addressing the right use case? Are we dealing with the right data? Making RAG files, understanding how AI works, making AI-driven prototypes, for vibe coding, and actually working with AI. You need to learn how to do that, and that is the way to unlock future employment in this industry. There's no other way.
I agree.
Critical thinkers.
Yeah, and to summarize that up, academia and effort are still a crucial portion of being part of the technology industry, regardless of where you're at, whether you're on the product side, marketing side, engineering side. Academia, learning, and then basically pushing forth the effort with those tools is a huge deal. So that being said, I'm actually going to hand things back to Hannah. There we go, to wrap things up.
Great. All right. Well, we covered a lot of ground, and I know we could have kept going much longer, but we're going to have to wrap up for today. Thank you all for your thoughtful questions. I know there are a lot that we didn't get to address today, so we'll follow up with our panelists and see if they can share some more insights, and we'll send those via email after today's event. Thank you for being such an engaged audience. If you would like to provide feedback on today's event, click the link on your screen and fill out our quick feedback survey. We would really appreciate any insights you have to further improve our events. And lastly, a huge thank you to our panelists for sharing their expertise and such forward-thinking perspectives. Well,
Thank
we
you.
hope to see you all next
Thank
time.
you.
Yes, and thanks for being here.
Thanks
Bye,
so much.
everyone.